Welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. My name is George Wright III with your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and education. And I'm excited to share some ideas with you this week that I've had from one of my favorite books, audiobooks I've been listening to by Dr. Wayne Dyer. But before I do that, I want to just go through the quote of the day in the Daily Mastermind mobile app. If you have that mobile app, you may have already seen this quote. Phenomenal pick that we got created on it. But the quote is from William Ernest Henley. And the quote is this: I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Once again, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I certainly hope you believe that, and I hope that's a thought that you might be able to carry throughout your day and throughout your week to inspire you to continue to unleash your potential. So without any further ado, I'm excited this week to share with you some ideas. I've been, every once in a while, I will go back to books that are my favorites, ones that help to give me perspective, clarity, inspiration, motivation. And one of those is a book called I Can See Clearly Now by Dr. Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer, for those of you that are not familiar with him, it's probably very few people, but he's a best-selling author, speaker. He's written over 40 books. 21 of them are bestsellers, and just tons and tons of amazing books. One of his first books, in fact, I think it was his first book, Your Erroneous Zones, estimated has sold over 35 million copies so far. Dr. Dyer unfortunately died a few years back in 2015, but many of you have heard me mention him because one of my favorite quotes is his quote, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I just love that quote. I'm going to give it to you again. It says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I really encourage you to kind of think about that a little bit more. But getting along with our thought and our topic for today, this book that he has called I Can See Clearly Now is an amazing book. I actually downloaded the audiobook because I love just kind of his voice and how he talks through it. It's sort of a manifesto of his life, or kind of an autobiography, you could call it, because it talks through his life and it talks through situations that happened in his life throughout this long book, and how, looking back now, he knows that his perspective has shaped, these situations have shaped who he was. And so he's saying, I can see clearly now because looking back, I can see that everything that seemed like an amazing, huge obstacle in my life really truly was a blessing, and it really truly helped to define him. So I'd like to talk with you this week multiple times on these episodes, just to kind of give you a few of my favorite thoughts from his book. And I'm going to start today by giving you one of those thoughts. And I will start with his quote that he kind of has in the book, right? So he says, I've said thoughts are the beginning. Actually, let me back up. Before I do that, I'm going to talk to you about what his kind of overarching idea, overall idea of this book is. And so it's this. It's kind of a quote from him, right? As I look back at the entire tapestry of my life, I can see from the perspective of the present moment that every aspect of my life was necessary and perfect. Each step eventually led to a higher place, even though these steps often felt like obstacles or painful experiences. So that's right out of the book, but I want to kind of point this out to you as I delve into it a little bit more today. As I look back on the entire tapestry of my life, I can see from the perspective of the present moment. That's the point. Present moment perspective, looking back, that every aspect of his life was necessary and perfect. And that perspective of perfect is so critical to the thought that I want to give you, because at the moment, obviously, like he says, it felt like obstacles and painful experiences. But what you're going to find, and I think you've already learned this lesson, if you've had any obstacles or pain in your life, when you look back, your perspective changes over time, right? Over time, that perspective of something that looks horrible and just like you'll never get over it, it sort of looks, you look back on it and you realize you did get over it. But if you go to the perspective of how it helped to define and shape you, I think you can gain a lot of insight and a lot of inspiration and motivation for moving forward, because our perspective does change over time. But if we don't benefit from looking back, it doesn't really create a lot of opportunity for us to grow. So, I've said many times that our thoughts are the beginning of manifesting your reality and your destiny. But I really believe your perspective the filter you use heavily influences your thoughts, right? And so this is the point I want to talk to you about today. And the point, one of my favorite points of this book, is that you need to detach from outcome. Detach from outcome. And I mean this in all senses of the word. Detach from the outcome of, your success, your life, your relationships. Some of you trying so hard at business or so hard in a relationship that you've got to learn to detach from the outcome in order to truly benefit in the moment and to be happy and fulfilled and passionate. So Wayne Dyer, in his book, he talks about one story I remember is he talks about some students that were making fun of him when he was a lecturer, because he had gotten kind of overweight and he'd kind of gotten a big belly, and they were sort of mimicking him and making fun of him. And, he laughed, but at the end of the day, he went back and, man, it really bothered him. And some of us might have had situations like that where, our weight or our looks or something, people made fun of us, but it drove him to really start, working out and losing weight. And at first, he couldn't walk a mile or jog a block, right? But over time, he was so determined because of the way he felt from those individuals that were making fun of him that he was able to ultimately run a marathon. And he talks about how, looking back on that situation, if it weren't for those individuals, now this is his reflection going back, right? If it weren't for those individuals making fun of him, he wouldn't have been driven to do what he needed to do. Now, you can see, looking back, that if that situation of making fun of him had driven him to do nothing about it because he was so overwhelmed, he wouldn't have benefited from that situation. But now, looking back, he greatly appreciates what those students did to him because it helped him to get into shape. And so that's one example he has of the perspective of looking back on the tapestry of his life. So I would ask you, how many times in your life are there situations that just seem absolutely horrible? Or maybe you weren't sure you were ever going to make it through it. We've all had times where we've questioned, why is this happening to me? What in the world? Why would I deserve this? Right? It's unfair. It's unplanned. It's uninspiring. It's going to set me back. But most always, when you look back at those situations, you survived, obviously, because you're still here, right? So you can work, these things work themselves out, right? And sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. But the point is we move on. But how many times have you looked back on those situations and trying to gain some perspective on how it's helped to define you and who you've become, so that you can gain both some learning lessons, but you can also gain some clarity and gratitude for those situations? See, there's a big difference I notice with Dr. Dyer when he has gratitude for those situations in hindsight, right? It's hard to do in the moment, but in hindsight, right? So the thought that I have is that I want you to detach from outcomes more often in your life. And what Dr. Dyer suggests is that maybe you attach to something that has purpose or heart. Because when you detach from outcomes and you attach to purpose, not only will your life be more fulfilling and easier to work with, simpler to work with, right? But, Dr. Dyer suggests that when you attach to purpose or heart, you can also gain better perspective during obstacles and hard times. And that'll help you to create opportunities during those trials and maybe even get a better filter for finding solutions. It's hard for you to find solutions when you have a perspective and a filter of, where it's going and what the outcome's going to be or how difficult it is, right? So, I know myself in business, for example, I've had several times in my career that I had a very thriving business, great income, great lifestyle, great recognition, only to have a key partner or individual I was working with just completely destroy it or attack or create situations that have undermined the priorities of the opportunities I had. And at those times, when it was devastating, I've had to start over several times in my career. But looking back, I truly, truly believe that looking back, it's absolutely something that defined me, was necessary for me, and has made me better. And as a result, it now helps me to handle stress better, keep my priorities in order, better dealing with obstacles. So it's during those times now that come up that I use the perspective that I gained from the past to give me hope, purpose, and drive. Because Most of us know that when you get older, you hear the stories all the time of people that look back on their life and they think, those situations weren't as bad as I thought. I wished I had, right? Regrets and things. Use those as learning experiences, done things better. So here's the point I want to leave you with. When you change your filter, your thoughts, and this is the thought I want you to really put in your mind, your thoughts laced with intent and purpose will almost certainly guarantee a better outcome for you in future situations. When you lace your current thoughts with intent and purpose to learn and grow and be grateful for situations that happen, you will, number one, most certainly guarantee a better outcome. And number two, you're going to deal with those situations a lot better. So, the thought that I want you to have is that you need to realize that your life has intent and it will help to define you. And that's a good thing. Situations are a good thing. Detach from the outcome. Detach from the outcome, because you will benefit from whatever happens in every situation. But you must recognize that, and you must learn and benefit from it overall. So that's my thought for you today. That's one of my favorite thoughts from the book, I Can See Clearly Now by Wayne Dyer. I encourage you to get the book, but that's all the time we have for today. So I appreciate you tuning in. I look forward to talking with you more tomorrow. And if these thoughts have helped you, if this information has helped you, I encourage you to share it with someone else. Both to give a highlight of what our mastermind can do for you, but more importantly, I think you internalize it more when you share thoughts like this. It helps you to learn and grow more as well. So anyway, I hope that'll help you. Once again, my name is George Wright III. I'm looking forward to talking with you tomorrow. Have an amazing day.